Hello and welcome back to the FTAI On-Demand Professional course. This is Module 6, Governance Artifacts That Matter. Up to this point, we have looked at trustworthiness, lifecycle thinking, use case context, risk, controls, safeguards, and assurance. In this module, we bring all of that into a place people can actually work with. We are going to talk about governance artifacts. For some people, the word artifact can sound dry. It may even sound like paperwork. In practice, governance artifacts are some of the most useful things an organization can have because they make judgment visible. A useful metaphor for this lesson is the cockpit of an aircraft. From the outside, you may just see a plane. Inside, however, the crew rely on instruments, checklists, indicators, logs, and warning systems. Nobody serious says that the pilot seems experienced, so the aircraft does not need instruments. Governance artifacts play a similar role. They help people see what is happening, what has been checked, what still needs attention, and who is responsible. In AI governance, artifacts matter because memory is weak and confidence can be misleading. Teams often think they understand a system perfectly well until somebody asks a difficult question. Who approved this use case? What data is involved? What are the main limitations? What evidence exists for the controls people keep referring to? If those answers live only in people's heads or in scattered email threads, governance becomes fragile very quickly. Good artifacts create traceability. Let us walk through the main artifacts as a record set. The first group frames the system and makes it visible. The AI use case intake, the AI system registry, and the model or system card. The second group supports accountable judgment, the risk register, the human oversight plan, and the controls and assurance worksheet. The third group supports action and reporting, the findings register, the remediation roadmap, and the board summary. Each artifact has a different job, and the value comes from how they connect. The first artifact that often matters is the AI use case intake. This is where an organization frames the basics properly. What is the system for? Who will use it? Who might be affected? What kind of outputs does it produce? What decisions could it influence? What benefits are expected? And what concerns need attention from the start? If the intake is vague, the rest of the governance work is usually weaker as well. The AI system registry then gives the organization a view of the AI estate as a whole. The use case intake should not be treated as an administrative hurdle. It is the first place where assumptions become visible. It should explain the purpose of the system, who will use it, who may be affected, what outputs are expected, what decisions it could influence, what benefits are being pursued, and what concerns are already visible. A poor intake is like building a house on a rough sketch drawn on the back of an envelope. You may still end up with walls and windows, but the structure will be harder to trust. The AI system registry answers a simple but surprisingly important question. What AI systems are we actually running, piloting, or preparing to use? Without a registry, organizations can lose sight of what exists, who owns it, where it sits, what it connects to, and whether it has been reviewed properly. This is not only a governance problem, it is also a security and operational problem. If you do not know what systems you have, you cannot sensibly govern access, manage dependencies, or investigate incidents. Once the system is framed and visible, the governance record needs to move from description into judgment. A model or system card explains what the system is for, what it should not be used for, its main limitations, key risks, dependencies, and monitoring expectations. The risk register records what could go wrong and what is being done about it. The human oversight plan shows where human review, intervention, and escalation really sit, rather than where people merely hope they sit. A model or system card adds a practical layer of clarity. I often compare it to the label on a medicine packet. The medicine may be effective, though the label still matters. It tells people what it is for, how it should be used, where caution is needed, and what should not be assumed. A system card does something similar for AI governance. It helps people understand the intended use boundary, the limits, the dependencies, and the monitoring expectations. The risk register and the human oversight plan make judgment more explicit. The risk register asks what could go wrong, why it could happen, what controls exist, who owns the risk, and what action is needed. The Human Oversight Plan asks where human review happens, when people can intervene, what triggers escalation, and what should never be left on autopilot. These records matter because vague oversight is not the same as real oversight. The Controls and Assurance Worksheet is where teams have to face a tougher question. What evidence do we actually have that the controls we rely on are there, working, and appropriate? Many organizations are comfortable describing controls in theory, though much less comfortable proving them in practice. This artifact records the control, the owner, the evidence, the quality of that evidence, the assurance status, and the next action. This is where the security thread becomes especially visible. Good artifacts give security concerns somewhere practical to live: access control, change approval, supplier dependency, monitoring, incident readiness, and segregation of duties all become easier to examine when they are properly recorded. The point is not that documentation replaces security. It is that documentation makes security visible, reviewable, and easier to challenge. Findings registers and remediation roadmaps matter because governance is not just about describing the current state. It is also about dealing honestly with weaknesses. When a review uncovers poor documentation, weak oversight, unclear ownership, thin evidence, privacy concerns, or security gaps, those issues need to be logged and acted on. Otherwise, they get discussed and then quietly forgotten. The board summary then gives senior leaders a concise view of what matters. A good board summary is not a technical report squeezed into a slide. It is a clear explanation of what the system does, why it matters, what the main governance concerns are, and what action is needed. Senior leaders do not need every operational detail, but they do need enough clarity to ask sensible questions and make defensible decisions. That is why the summary should be concise, plain-spoken, and focused on the implications of doing nothing, as well as the actions needed. Frameworks and regulatory expectations make these artifacts even more valuable. NISTAIRMF, ISO Management System Thinking, ISO Impact Assessment Thinking, ICO Guidance around Explainability and Governance, and the UK's principles-based, sector-led route all point in the same broad direction. Organizations need to be able to show their work. Good artifacts help show that the use case was understood, risks were considered, controls were reviewed, and issues did not simply disappear into the background. A final point is worth stressing. Governance artifacts should be useful, not ceremonial. A document that nobody reads, updates, or trusts is not a governance asset. It is theater. Good artifacts are alive enough to support decisions, reviews, challenge, handover, assurance, security checks, and leadership communication. When they are done properly, they do not slow good work down. They make good work more defensible. Your practical activity is to build a linked governance record set. Take one of the case studies in the platform and create the core artifacts for it. Start with the AI use case intake and the AI system registry entry. Create a model or system card. Log at least 2 risks in the risk register. Outline the human oversight plan and add at least 2 rows to the controls and assurance worksheet. Where you find a weakness, create a finding and add a remediation action. Then produce a concise board summary. Pay attention to how each record supports the others. For now, I want you to leave this module with one simple thought. Governance artifacts turn good intentions into visible practice. They help people understand what a system is for, who it affects, what risks matter, where oversight sits, what evidence exists, and what still needs fixing. A strong artifact set makes governance more traceable, more defensible, and more useful for assurance, security review, leadership communication, and regulatory accountability. Complete the practical activity, take the quiz in the Learning Portal, then move on to Module 7.